We are live here in the smarTours headquarters in New York, New York on January 16th, 2017. I'm here with smarTours product manager Nancy Stern. My name is Greg Geronimus. I'm smarTours co-CEO. We are filming a quick video on some of the insider scoop on travel to Iran, because we know a lot of you out there have a lot of questions about what it's like. Nancy was just there in December 2016 for a week, traveling more or less on her own, just with an Iranian guide who will be also leading smarTours trips starting in July 2017. So let's take it away. Nancy, thank you for your time.
And thank you for allowing me to go for a week.
So if we can start actually just by getting a little bit of information on your travels, your past travels. Any rough guess as to how many countries you've been to in your lifetime?
Most of them, except for maybe Hawaii and Alaska. Other than that, most parts of the world.
Okay, wonderful. So that includes all over Africa,
Pakistan, Afghanistan, the Silk Road, Africa, all over the world.
Wonderful. And if you had to, as you were just in Iran a few weeks ago, what would you say the best part of the trip was?
Aside from the entire trip being phenomenal, the best part actually is the beginning. When you get off the plane, you put on, it's just this type of a, nothing fancy. This is plain and easy to do.
So as a woman, you can use a scarf.
This was the scarf. I used it for the entire time. It was cold anyway, but even when it's warm, it's light, it's breezy. You don't even have to really wrap yourself up much. It's very easy.
Okay.
Your hair can show. That was a misconception I had too.
So you get off the plane. What was the?
Get off the plane and you arrive at a modern airport and you go through immigration the same way you would at JFK. You go to your little booth. The under foreign nationals, I walk there. They stamp me in. They wish me a good trip. I think at that point I was shocked that I was in a country that I had read about, grown up with a Shah and then a revolution in 1979 when I was old enough to understand everything. When I left the hall, after I got my luggage, which was maybe 10 minutes, the driver was there with a big sign that said Stern. And I'm thinking, here I am in Iran, Stern.
And you're alone. You're not traveling with a group as you would be.
I have no idea who's picking me up. My husband says to me before I leave, where are you going in Iran? I don't know. Who's picking you up? I don't know. Where are you staying? I don't know.
You were going on an inspection trip. It would be very different. It will be very different for those traveling with smarTours. They'll have a detailed itinerary.
Right, but I went.
They'll be flying over with the group. They'll be picked up with a big smarTours sign.
Which is why it's so easy. Which is why I'm telling you how easy it was. Guide was there with a sign. A man turns and looks and goes, Stern. I know so many Sterns. Nice Jewish people. And my reaction was, oh my God.
This was your Iranian driver who was saying, I know all these Jewish people.
No, just a person walking by, picking up his door. An Iranian man just turned around, saw the sign, went, Stern. I know plenty of Sterns, nice Jewish people. That was really special.
That's a great way to start the trip.
It was special.
Unexpected too.
It was almost shocking. I didn't expect the level of knowledge of everybody there. The driver who picked me up, wonderful, explained Iran to me as we went to the hotel, which was like any 5-star hotel in the United States. I was expecting possibly Cuba or other countries in similar, Myanmar. This was just a beautiful hotel in Iran. Beautiful large room. All the rooms were like that. I inspected them, just with a beachet restaurant. Beachet, which is nearby here.
Yeah.
And it was the same beachet.
Wonderful.
So it really was a welcome that it wasn't that dark continent that you read about.
Wonderful. And so perhaps the answer to this next question, my next question was, what was the most unexpected part of the trip? Perhaps being approached with Stern in the airport, but...
The whole trip was extraordinarily unexpected, and you read about the hospitality, but when you experience it, it's just another level. People are very open. I expected everybody not to interact all that much, maybe to be friendly and hospitable, but not to talk about the world and their own personal feelings. And everyone was, people would stop you on the street. The mullahs, you would go to the madrasa and meet the mullahs who would give you their take, you would give them your take. I was very open about myself being Jewish as well. And they were...
You didn't feel any reservations about
absolutely
admitting
not.
your
I wouldn't
faith?
have said anything had I felt any kind of pushback.
And just so that everybody's
Right.
on the same page, what is a mullah? Tell me what a mullah is.
A cleric.
Is a cleric.
I learned so much. There are mullahs that wear black turbans on their head and white. The ones who wear black are direct descendants of Muhammad. I had no idea. They actually get certified. But they're the teachers in the madrasas, in the religious schools.
So the madrasas are the religious schools, and that's...
Yes,
yeah.
and they're Shia Muslims, and their outlook on life I found very interesting, very encompassing. They live their religion. They believe in what they believe, and they believe that it's their right to believe that. And again, it is. They were very, very forthcoming with the fact that they did. American people, they really loved. The government, it's a governmental issue between governments, the same way it is with us and other countries as well.
So like Cuba, when you go to Cuba, you're embraced with open arms from the Cuban people.
Yes.
But there's there's a history and tension between the two governments. Similar experience.
Yes, but
Iran?
I felt Iran was more open.
Even more open than Cuba.
I've been to Cuba many times, and I felt Iran was more open than Cuba, and that was very surprising. I was expecting more of a Cuban type of a vibe going on, but it wasn't like that. It was more open. I think people they were not afraid to speak, and me as a person traveling there, I wasn't afraid either. We went to the mosques. We had discussions.
Were you able to enter the mosques? Were there any restrictions on entering? Or?
Most mosques you could enter. There was one mosque where you went into a little stall, and they did that was the only mosque. It was a very religious mosque where they gave you the chador to wear. Otherwise, it's just a headpiece.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't allowing any foreign people inside. You could go to the door, but most of the mosques were you could go in without any issues. And the stained glass, the artwork in there, the tiles, just amazing artwork.
And did you tell me about the experience we mentioned a little bit as a Jewish person, as a woman?
As a woman, another surprise. These people work. Most women are working alongside men. They go to college. They're like the Cubans. They're college educated. Education is nominal as far as the cost goes. My guide's daughter is an engineer, 28 years old, married to an engineer. Both work, have a baby. They live lives like I live, and like most of the people I know live. The women are working alongside the men.
That's great. And you didn't feel uncomfortable as a woman yourself?
I felt less uncomfortable there than I have in many countries that I've visited. Many Asian countries, even in Europe. I mean, there are times I've gone to places in Europe where people will yell and scream. I lived in Italy for many years. There was none of that. People were very respectful. They wouldn't yell in the markets. They were very respectful. It was a very gentle society. It was very educated. It was extraordinarily surprising.
And let's go through some of the sort of the nitty gritty. Were you able to access the internet when
Yes.
you were? Yes.
Yes. Now, outside in the street, no. On the other hand, there is a way that you can do that. You can buy a SIM card, and that's, from what I understand, maybe it's $20-30. And I was going to do that, but then I realized I had such great service when I got to the hotels that during the day I wanted to enjoy the entire country. And at night, when I had to work or I wanted to contact my family, Skype works perfectly. You could Skype anyone from
Wonderful.
there. It was no issue whatsoever, and all the hotels that we use for sure are equipped with Wi-Fi.
And what about the currency situation? How does that work? Could someone use a credit card?
No,
Could they use...
no, you cannot use a credit card or traveler's checks. But US dollars, you should bring $50 and $100 bills. You don't need an exorbitant amount of money, just a few $100, maybe $500. And
because in our trip in particular, we're including so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. In our trip, there's no need for optional tours. It's all inclusive. There are a few dinners, actually lunches, that we left because it's nice to be able to order what you want and maybe sit with friends and share. So a few of them have been omitted. But other than that, it's just whatever it is you'd like to buy. If you're on the market, if you want to get something, soda or water to drink, you can use your US dollars.
Or shopping if there's a rug that catches your eye.
And there was for me, and they will take credit cards. They will take.
Oh, really?
They will take US because it goes somehow through Dubai, and this is known.
Oh, what do you know? No.
It's easy.
So that helps. So if you plan on doing some more serious shopping,
big shopping, then you bring your.
Okay.
It's always good to bring the credit card.
Right.
On the other hand, if you pay in cash,
you might get a better deal.
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
unless it's $150,000 rugs, of which I saw the most phenomenal rugs,
Yeah.
which were. But it's easy to use US dollars. When you get there, you can change a little money into what they call reals or tomans. They have two different currencies, and the guide can walk you through all of that.
Yeah. And the guides that you had were
Unbelievable.
They were good. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Very incredibly well educated. We have some local guides who are poets. They show you their poetry. It's their own rap, their form of rap, and it's great. It's very interesting. It's a land of poetry.
Yeah.
Hafez, the poet, is buried in Shiraz. It's really interesting.
Which is an area that we visit on the trip
it
for smarTours.
It is. We go to really the best highlights. We cover really great areas. I did the trip, and we cover really, really phenomenal areas.
As far as the site or the ancient historical site that was most exciting for you to see, what was your top one or two?
Well, Parsegard is something. It's like Pompeii, only better. You read about Parsegard growing up. You read about Persepolis growing up. Persepolis is the home of the ancient Cyrus and all these kings that lived there, and it's very well preserved, and you can walk. It's quite large. It's got to be at least a mile square, and you can walk as much or as little as you like. The guide will explain everything to you. It's in a beautiful area. It's right outside of Shiraz, and Parsegard is actually right before that. Those two are very good. But you're also going to see all these other UNESCO sites, as well as their architectural feats. And I call it feats because, again, they didn't have air conditioning there, but in the city of Yaz, you'll see these tall towers, and they're wind catchers. That's their air conditioning. Not in a lot of their own homes, but it's when you stand there, it's cool, no matter where you are in that building, because of the way they built their houses.
That's great. And if let's say someone's watching this video and they get really excited about the idea of going to Iran. Of course, smarTours is an option. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this video. But let's try to make it as sort of broadly helpful as possible to people out there. What are people's options if they want to? Could I book a flight on on kayak and book some hotel rooms in Tehran and?
No, not at this time. Maybe.
Do you need to go with a group? In other words,
you have to go with a group. You have to go with a group, and you have to be accompanied by a guide. That does not mean that you can't walk.
That's the
on
law.
street.
That's not just your recommendation.
Law. In fact, you cannot at this time take a taxi to a restaurant by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Our guide will be very happy to give you a ride to wherever you'd like to go at night. They've already ascertained that. In case you want to go somewhere in the evening, they will organize the group to go out. You yourself, as a United States citizen, cannot just take a cab, hail a cab, and go. You must travel with a group.
Why is that on the cab point? That I find that interesting in the context of everything else that you just said.
This is new. This is about a year old, and it's going. Everything changes, and it depends how our government. Everything is between the governments, not the people. It's tit for tat. When we do something nice for them, they take that away. When they do something nice for us, we give them a little bit more of money or whatever it is that we exchange. Everything is based on reaction between the governments, and that's.
But not in any material way that's going to affect the travel experience.
It won't affect your travel experience at all, and you should go with a guide because it's really a different country, and they will explain the ins and outs to you. They explained everything that you could ever imagine.
Well, it's sort of like a lot of destinations out there. I think of Egypt. You can't go to Egypt without an Egyptologist.
You really need that, and
Yeah.
for a lot of countries, you really, really need to have somebody who can guide you through it, or you're not going to get the same. You're not going to get that experience. You're not going to get the history. You just won't get that. They take you for this special luncheon of like a patty of some sort, but they'll explain to you what you're eating. They'll explain to you the different choices you have. If you're a vegetarian, they can accommodate that. You really do need to go with someone who's very well learned. You'll feel it's a safe country.
Yeah,
it's safe, and that is another big plus.
And they're starting to see more and more Americans visit. Is that
more and more? It's in fact, if you look around, I know that the numbers have doubled in the past year or two, and they're expected to take off. Now is the bottom rung when I think people, if they want to see Iran before all the tourists get there, you should go and you should see it now.
I think you heard about this as well. They're recently made aware of a group of Jewish women that went to visit.
I know them very well.
Yeah.
I know them very well, and I have to.
And they came back. They had an amazing trip.
An amazing trip, and there are Jewish areas there.
Yeah.
They consider themselves Iranian Jews.
Yeah.
And they live peacefully. The Zoroastrians live peacefully. They have the Armenian Christians. They live peacefully. It's something that you don't read about and you don't know until you're actually sitting there, walking around and experiencing it. It's very surprising, the news that we don't get.
Absolutely.
I'm here to report the news.
There you go. Real news, not fake news.
Real news.
And tell us a little bit about what's required in advance of travel.
You should always realize it's not an intensive process. When you get the paperwork, it's really just two things. They have a list of questions. They call them 21 questions. It takes 5 minutes. Name, address, phone number, that's 3 questions. Your employer, or if you're you work at home, you're a mother, you're retired, just basic questions.
These are not SAT questions. These
not
are
SAT, and you don't have to, you just write it, that's it, 2 seconds. The other thing you do have to include is a resume. And if you have a resume, then you're fine. If you don't have a resume and you work from home or you don't work, all they really want to know, and I have a sample that'll be on the web, is if you're a housewife, if you're retired, just the dates that you can be accounted for, where you live, taking care of children, going to school. They just want basic information, just so they make sure that everything that you say is true. And all I can tell you is you should just be truthful on that the way you would on any resume.
Right. And is it fair to say that it's no more complicated than some of the other processes that other governments put us through?
I've wound up in diplomatic pouches trying to get visas. I sent it in, and generally it takes a few weeks for the authorization number to come back. And at that point, you click on to.
And you send it. You said so. Travelers would send it into smarTours.
Send it right into smarTours, and we take care of that portion of it with Iran.
And that's included in the cost of the trip.
This is all included. When that authorization number comes back, we alert you. At that point, you click on a link with the people who are doing our visa, and they'll walk you through it. You need 2 passport pictures. The women need to wear a scarf just like this. That's it.
So you would need to get a new passport or a new passport picture?
No, you just need to get new passport pictures.
Okay.
2 passport pictures, and there is a fee for the passport. You send the hard passport, your passport, 2 copies of it, 2 pictures, and just a visa form, which again took me 5 minutes to fill out. At that point, you FedEx it. That's all included in their price too, to the people who are doing our visa, and then they FedEx it back to you, and that really shouldn't take more than a week or 2.
So there'll be people to walk travelers through the process.
Yes,
they're not going to be on their own.
No, and it's not daunting. It's not daunting at all. I've had, getting visas from other countries, I've waited months sometimes, and this was not daunting.
Great. So last real question, I think, who is, in your opinion, who is this trip for? Who should take this trip to Iran?
I'd say this trip is for anyone who's interested in history and culture and learning about a country that is behind this curtain that we don't really know so much about it. Anybody who's curious, whether they can be young and curious, they can be older and curious, they could be very old and curious. It's for someone who wants something a little bit different than Cancun or Europe even. It's eye-opening, and you'll learn a lot. Somebody who wants to learn. It's for somebody who wants to learn and is interested in meeting people who are just really wonderful and breaking down a barrier. It's breaking down a barrier and learning about another culture.
That's wonderful. I think we've seen that with Cuba. I think every time you and I have both been to Cuba a number of times, and we both remarked in the past, each time that we've been to Cuba, we've seen a noticeable progress.
Huge.
And there's no question, in my mind at least, and I think you share this view, that the interaction between the Cuban people and the American travelers has a real impact. It has them take stock of what their lives are like and what opportunities they might have or might not have, and what they might want in the future. And travel is really a great way to maybe
it opens
in
up
a small
the
way
world.
change the world.
This is what we're here for. We're here to promote peace between countries, to have people grow on both sides. We want the Iranians and the Cubans and every place that we want them to grow and to learn more about us. And if they learn more about us, they'll understand where we're coming from. The same way when I was in Iran, I had such a deep appreciation for everything that they were doing, even though I may not have thought that way before. It's a learning experience, and it promotes goodwill on both sides. And if this is what we can do, this is why we're here.
And real last question, I think I know the answer. You'd go back?
Tomorrow? I'd go back, and I'm expecting to go back. I do. I think there's so much more that there is to explore. But this is the first step. I think we need to do the first step, and then we can.
And then you're ready.
And then I'm ready.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Nancy.
Thank you.